Yeah, hi there. These comments are for Nick and Ozan, and I am Michael. I am the lead instructor for grammar in the ELP program here at California State University, San Bernardino. Okay, so let's take a look at your question. So, Michael suggested spending less time on modals and passive voice to have more time for gerunds, infinitives, noun clauses, and adjective clauses. Modals are in two chapters, Chapter 9 and Chapter 10. Which one should we focus on given we only have 1 week? And you also had a question about your chapter test. So how many quizzes do you think is appropriate given you have 6 chapter tests? Our quizzes are set at 30%, chapter quizzes 25%, and irregular verb quizzes at 5%. All right, let's take a look at the curriculum too so we can kind of see how everything ties together. So first of all, in Level 2, we see mention of modals. Use modals to express ability, can versus able. So they're at least introduced superficially at Level 2. Then we go to Level 3. I think that we'll see 2 different things here. Level 3, we actually have recognize and use modals, necessity, lack of necessity, making suggestion, advisability. So in Level 3, it's a full-blown, really thorough discussion of modals. And even we have in Level 3, introduce passive form and meaning. So passive voice is also introduced in Level 3. So then once we get to Level 4, and we take a look at some of what's going on here, we see a lot of things about complex sentences, particularly with adjective clauses, noun clauses. Also, we have using gerunds and infinitives, which helps make the argument that if we've already mentioned modals in the previous 2 levels and we've dealt with them, and we've even introduced passive voice in Level 3, then it stands to reason that we want to focus more on the complex type sentences in Level 4, looking at the noun clauses, adjective clauses, and gerunds and infinitives. Now, according to the curriculum map in Level 4, it does say accurately use all verb tenses, passive modals, and subjunctives in written and spoken discourse. These are some what we call student learning outcomes, some things that we want to be able to do. Now, it also says here, apply complex structures in written and spoken language. It also talks about using verb tenses and modals in Level 3. So again, I think that if you focus a little bit less on modals and passives or passive voice in Level 4, and that's going to give you a little more time for gerunds and infinitives, I think that's a good thing, right? All right, to answer your question now, so you say we have about 6 chapter tests in this level. How many quizzes do you think is appropriate? Our quizzes are set at 30%. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you what I used to do. I taught this back in 2012, the Level 4 grammar class. So let's see what we have here. I'll show you what I did, then you can kind of think about how you want to work on yours. And I'm getting the feeling that you might be, if you have 6 tests, you might be doing a little too much. Here's what I used to do. When I taught grammar, I had, now remember that this is before all the new guidelines and things, and we have to make some changes to this, but I had 3 10-perfect sentence quizzes that I did, so that was 30 points, 10 points apiece. I had 3 unit tests. What I did is, I had a unit test that covered adjective clauses. I had another unit test that covered noun clauses. I had another unit test that covered gerunds and infinitives. So that was 40 points. But then I also had 2 speaking tests, 10 points apiece. Because if you look at the curriculum here, it says apply complex structures in written and spoken discourse So in order to test the spoken language, I'd actually would have them respond to a speaking practice test during class 2 so I could evaluate that. And that's where we have that. And then we have the cumulative final exam, which will cover, what I would do here is it would be like a huge unit test focusing on noun clauses, adjective clauses, and gerunds and infinitives. That's it. Now the other thing you want to add to this, of course, is the irregular verb quizzes at 5 points, and then you can modify it. And then you also have to put in that verb tense final exam. Now that's important because here it's saying that students accurately use all verb tenses and then they apply complex structures in written and spoken language. So by doing the verb tense final exam, you're hitting the SLO that focuses on verb tenses, and it also can focus on complex sentence structures in writing. So you're kind of hitting everything there by doing that. So those are some of my comments. So maybe, and I'm just giving you suggestions here, you have to kind of think about how it's going to work. I would maybe, Ozan, maybe reduce the number of unit tests that you're giving. Now, if you also want to focus, I think that you said, if I remember from here, okay, you want to focus on modals. So maybe what you and Nick could do is you could focus on passive voice and modals in just 1 week, and then you could create another unit test that focuses around those modals and passive voice, and just focus with passive voice on just the basics. How is it formed? How is it used? And then test on the basic usage of passive voice. And then with modals, you can look through those 2 chapters and then pick out what you think is most relevant, what you think is going to help them the most. So it's going to be tough. So basically you have 4 class sessions, and maybe one of your class sessions can deal with passive voice and forming passive voice. And then you can have maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday class sessions can deal with modals, taking out what you think the most important parts of chapter 9 and 10 are. You see what we're saying? So then, maybe instead of having 3 unit tests, you might have 4. So one of your unit tests focuses around passive voice and modals. Then another unit test focuses on the formation and use of noun clauses. Another unit test focuses around the formation and the use of adjective clauses. And then the final one can focus on using gerunds and infinitives. And hopefully that gives you more time that you can spend focusing around gerunds and infinitives in your class. So you kind of see what we're doing here. So then we're taking these ideas here and you might be adding onto this a little bit and slightly modifying this. Alright, so hopefully that makes some sense. So then it might look something like this. We have, I'm not even factoring in attendance or participation on this. I think when I was doing grammar, I didn't even put that as part of it. But look at this. We have 3 10-perfect sentence quizzes at 20%. I would always do this one no matter what. Now, why is that? If you go back to the curriculum, here, it says here in the curriculum for level 4, see level 4 curriculum here, it's saying is able to recognize common errors in writing that relate to noun and adjective clauses and phrase structures. So I think it's important to give students a chance to do some kind of freestyle writing, and I've expanded a little bit. It's not just writing, recognizing errors that relate to noun and adjective clauses, but recognizing errors in writing generally. Right? So if you look at what I've done here with these 10 perfect sentences, basically they show up They have to write 10 sentences. Each sentence needs to be 12 words or more, and their goal is to get all 10 sentences correctly written by the end of the class. So they're working on finding their own errors. So they come up to you and they'll say, is the sentence correct or not? If it is, you'll put C. If it's not, you'll put nothing. Then the student goes back to his or her desk and tries to find the errors. So if you did 3 of these, you have 20 points for these 3, right? These are considered quizzes. So you have at least 3 quizzes here. Then you have 4 unit tests. The 4 unit tests can focus around Unit Test 1, passive voice and modals, Unit Test 2, noun clauses, Unit Test 3, adjective clauses, Unit Test 4, gerunds and infinitives. And then you can have the 2 speaking tests. These are 20 points or 10 points apiece. This is a pretty big part of the class where they actually have to speak, record their voice, and then send it to you. Then you have the irregular verb quizzes, not worth very much at all, 5 points. The cumulative final exam is worth 10 points, and the final exam covers the content around passive voice, modals, noun clauses, and gerunds and infinitives. And what I would do here is to make it what I call a hybrid. Create what's called a hybrid final exam. Part of the exam maybe is multiple choice, maybe 30 questions, and then the other 10 or 12 questions has to do with writing, maybe combining sentences and such, and then you can make the final exam here 10 points. And then the verb tense final exam, you can make this 10 or 15 points. If you want to take 10 points or just put 10 points here, then you can put attendance maybe / participation. You can make this 5 points. And I think that gives you all the points that you need. So we got 20 plus 30, 50, 70, 75, 85, 95, and then 100, breaking it up kind of like this. Now with our new policy, you can't really drop any tests. So there's no makeup quizzes or there's no makeup tests allowed. Now if you want to make up something, maybe they can make up if they miss or get a low, not make up, you drop the lowest score. So you could drop one of the scores as relate to the 10 perfect sentence quizzes perhaps. If you want to call these quizzes, instead you might consider that or the irregular verb quizzes, but you must be explicit in the syllabus that you cannot drop the cumulative final exam, you can't drop the verb tense final exam, I think. You could drop maybe the 3 10 perfect sentence quizzes or maybe one of these irregular verb quizzes perhaps. All right, so anyway, that's my 2 cents. So take a look at what I've given you and what we've talked about. And if you have more questions, come by maybe in the mornings before your grammar class, maybe around 8 o'clock or 8:30, and we'll take a look at the other question more specifically. If you want to go over in more detail, okay, which areas in Chapter 9 and 10 should you focus on? If you want to look at that together, I'll be happy to do that with you. All right? Thank you.